Show, and joining us now is Congresswoman Yvette Herrell, representing the second congressional district of New Mexico. I get confused sometimes with all this. I keep remembering you're in the second district, and the third district was created for Bill Richardson, but that's an old history story that we'll talk about another day. Hey, how are things?
Right.
Are you back in New Mexico now that the Congress is in recess right now?
Yes, in fact, been in New Mexico since the end of September, and we are just running all over the district, and obviously we're spending a lot of time up in the new district because it's just important to build those relationships and get to know the new voters, and it's been incredible, and I've really enjoyed talking to all these new people. And here's the thing, Jean, when you kind of move away from the rhetoric and what mainstream media is talking about, really everybody's concerned about inflation, the cost of living, the high crime rate, the open border, education. I mean, it feels like everybody's kind of feeling their concerns are all pretty much, centralized. We're all thinking and feeling the same way.
Well, that's true, and there's a lot of issues that people are worried about. I've been reading, in the past when kids went trick-or-treating, the concern was, razor blades and apples
Right.
and stuff like that. Now we're talking about rainbow fentanyl and just yet another thing for parents to be worried about for their kids.
Oh, absolutely. I can't even imagine, and especially now because we're seeing just raid after raid, bust after bust. Some of the biggest ones in the country are happening right here in New Mexico or right around the southern border here. And now, like you said, with this rainbow fentanyl that is appealing, especially to the younger kids, there's absolutely no way to know. And I just can't even imagine, sorting through Halloween candy because you just never know. And sadly, we've just created this environment that we live in now with lawlessness, with this willingness to, kill people with this fentanyl. Here's what's so sad. And we had Congressman Steve Scalise in Hobbs yesterday and did a really great luncheon just talking about the election, the importance of the vote and everything. But like he mentioned, he said, and he's not making light of it, but he said, you have a school shooting and it's all over the news, and that's all anybody talks about for days on end. And yet you have, hundreds of thousands of innocent Americans being poisoned every day, every year with this fentanyl, because that's the number one killer between the ages of 14 and 45 is overdose on fentanyl, and the media doesn't even talk about it. I mean, it just makes no sense that we have this crisis, not only the open border, of course, but we have this fentanyl crisis, and the mainstream media doesn't even want to discuss it.
No, they don't, and that's really unfortunate because I'm assuming when you go out throughout the district, that's an issue that people are talking about. You mentioned the inflation and how it's affecting people, and now we're getting ready to go into heating season. Last few days, it's been kind of stinky around houses as everybody turns on their furnaces for the first time in a few months and burn off the dust. And our energy prices are still really high, and it doesn't appear to be anything that's being done to mitigate that, other than I saw where the president's going to dump another bunch of oil out of the petroleum oil reserve into the market to try to mitigate that a little bit.
Right.
Nothing's being done about that either, right?
No, in fact, I just signed onto a resolution, pushing back on the administration for depleting our resources, like you mentioned, this strategic petroleum reserve. That's for Americans. That's for us to have on hand in case there is some type of, weather event or some type of, catastrophic event that keeps us from being able to refine and move oil around the country. And, it is so crazy to think that we sit on these natural resources and yet still, he wants to push Saudi Arabia to produce oil for us. But here's what's going on, and I wish more people would be paying attention and watching what's happening around the world. I mean, people are absolutely up in arms. They're mad about the cost of fuel, of food, the economy, inflation, and it's happening here in America just as it is in Brussels and Venezuela and all over the world because our governments are failing the people. And the fact that we're actually hamstringing, our energy space here in America makes no sense at all. And you're right. people are going to start really feeling the pain even more so as we get into these winter months. Right now, 1 in 6 Americans are already behind on their utility bills, and every single energy source we have for heating has gone up at least 10%. I mean, that, everything's moved up. Oil, natural gas, all of these heating elements. And I'm telling you, with the price of food and fuel and heating and mortgages and these interest rates, there is absolutely no end in sight. But there's no political will for this administration or this one-party rule to change the way they're spending money to make it easier or to ease these costs on the American people.
The other thing, too, that I've always find puzzling is this big push towards the electric cars. And a lot of the people that are making the electric cars are jacking up the prices, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. Funny, it's $7,500, which is about equal to the the government tax credit.
Isn't that interesting?
and then you can't get them because there's supply chain issues and all these other issues with them. It just seems to me, let's just go buy a gas-powered car or a gas-powered truck and solve our problem that way. But that doesn't seem to be the focus of the government right now.
No, I mean, they're all in for the Green Deal, for this green energy, making these mandates that really are unachievable because, number one, we don't have the infrastructure. Number two, we have to have traditional energy resources like, petroleum products, et cetera, plus the minerals. We have to have mineral development in order to even reach these goals. And I think we can all agree. I'm an all-of-the-above energy person, but I'm also a realist, and we know demands for energy are going up. So why wouldn't we want to produce it more efficiently, cleaner, and more affordably in our own country than going around the world? And here's what concerns me, watching what's going on in Europe. I mean, this is going to be catastrophic as they move into those cold winter months over there, and they are very much limited now on the amount of fuel that they can use to heat their homes. And this is a frightening place. Here we are in the technology age and in the age that we live in globally, and now people are going to have to worry or struggle about even heating their homes this winter. I mean, it's because, we've all pushed back on these green New Deals around the globe, this environmental issue, and yet we are still losing that battle, and we can change it here in America if we take back the House and start bringing some common sense solutions back to the people.
Well, and let's talk about that a little bit. That's how important this election is, especially here in New Mexico, but across the country. Congress is in recess so that sitting Congress people can go back and campaign against challengers and so forth. New Mexico, the polls, people are starting to vote now.
Right.
What are you reading? What are you hearing on the ground about turnout and excitement for candidates and such as yourself going into this election cycle?
Yeah, I feel, my sense on the ground is that there seems to be a little bit more excitement on the Republican side. Republican voters seem a little more motivated. It's been, their turnout hasn't been huge yet, but I'm really anticipating and really hoping that everybody gets to the polls, because the way these statewide races and these congressional seats are going to, be won is by people getting out to the polls, because we'll obviously have to have every single Republican vote, and then of course pull over, independents and Democrats as well. But like I said, Gene, as I've been traveling around, when you just start having conversations with people, it truly is, what's going to happen with this energy. A lot of small businesses still very concerned because, one, they still don't have a full set of employees because there's such a shortage there. And then the cost, of just keeping their doors open. So these are very real issues. And of course, you couple that with the open border, the uptick in crime, this lawlessness, if you will. I mean, these are scary times for everybody. And we have a way to fix this. In fact, I'm so proud of the commitment to America. And that's something that the House Republicans rolled out. I think it's been about 3 weeks now, because we want to make sure that the American people know our game plan, how we can bring back an economy that's strong. And it starts, obviously, with opening up energy production here, but also strengthening the supply chains and bringing those jobs back to America. This is what concerns me. We're already so reliant on China for so many things when you talk about, especially in the medical space, for medical equipment, for medications, all these things. We should be developing that here. We should bring those supply chains here to America and not be so reliant on, on foreign adversaries for our basic needs. And that's where we're headed. But we have to cut this fraud, this waste, abuse. Do you realize, Gene, that this Democratic Congress has passed over $10 trillion in spending, more than what the budget was calling for, more than what the Congressional Budget Office even expected. And that is the reason why we're seeing such an impact in our pocketbooks. So we've got to get that spending under control, because that's really the crux of what's hurting everybody. I mean, when you pass trillions of dollars of bills, for instance, the infrastructure bill over $1 trillion, and only 10% of that actually went to real infrastructure, and the rest of it went to Green New Deal or setting up climate, groups, or putting money in the, climate bank, if you will. This is what's killing our pocketbooks, and this is what we have to get a handle on.
Well, and it is, and it's trickling into so many other areas, even in the financial sector. Banks and institutions that lend money are being told that they have to consider the environmental impact of the companies
Right.
that they are going to loan money to, or whether it has to do with guns or oil. And it's gone beyond just some congressmen wanting to pass bills that may or may not get heard in the light of day. It's now going into our regulatory infrastructure. What is, if Republicans can take over Congress, you still have a Democrat in the White House. What can be done to slow down, stop, or retract some of these things that are starting to entrench themselves within the bureaucracy?
Yeah, and you're right. When you talk about it and explain it like that, and people just, some people who aren't in the banking business or even in the industries that are being very impacted don't even realize the severe overreach. But the first thing we have to do, and the first thing that Leader McCarthy has said that they will do, is first thing is, get rid of the 87,000 IRS agents. But after that, Gene, what we can do in the House is frame up and set up these bills, get them done, get them passed to the House, push them to the Senate, and get them to the president's desk. And this is where it'll be very interesting for the American people, because he'll have an opportunity to sign into law some common sense policies that'll actually help and bolster our small businesses and our energy sector, or he'll veto them. And if he's thinking about running for president in 2024, I mean, these will be really great ways to be able to put him on notice that this is what the American people want. But the one thing that we will be able to do that is very vital is we can stop these overspending bills. I mean, if we could have had the majority over the last 22 months, we could have stopped some of this overspending, these trillion-dollar infrastructure bills. We could have really reined in the amount of money in some of these bills. Naturally, we need some of the defense fund. We need some of these things for sure. But they are just riddled with pet projects, pork spending, spending that didn't need to be in these bills, and that they're getting through because they're getting through on a party line vote. So that's the one thing we know we can stop, is this crazy spending spree that the Democrats have been on for the last 22 months. So that, the first thing we can do is stop some of that, which is going to be great. And then really get down to common sense policies that actually make sense for our military, for our industries, for the security of the people. But I can also tell you that there will be many state department heads that will be coming into committee for oversight. For instance, Mayorkas, I mean, we've already pushed to have him impeached. He will be in front of the Oversight Committee almost immediately because of his failures at the southern border. So there are a lot of things. And the one thing people need to know is Congress really controls the purse strings for all these different departments. And so we will have the ability to really whittle down these budgets that these departments are putting forward and really cut, again, that waste, fraud, and abuse. So in terms of the dollar and how how we're seeing it in our pocketbooks, our checkbooks, we will be able to curtail that from day one. So that's good. And secondly, and probably more important, is we can retire Nancy Pelosi once and for all, because she's been the ringleader for this administration as far as the House goes, and this has been obviously part of our problem.
Well, that's a very important factor, but I think it really brings up the importance for people to get out and vote. And there's a lot of people I talk to, I'm sure you run into them as well, that say, why do I even need to vote or want to vote? It doesn't matter. The fix is in. Nobody. We elect you people, and you don't do what we want you to do. How do we get people convinced that they have to get out and vote? We need turnout.
Well, we absolutely have to, and I would just say, first off, it's such a precious right that we have, and it's critical. I would say, look at the TV and see what's going on around the world. Look what's going on in Venezuela. Look what's going on even now in England. These rioters, these people that are so angry at government because government's failing the people, and that's exactly what's happening in America. And our votes do count, and people will say, well, they'll just cheat. Well, they can only cheat by so much, and if we get out the vote, we have so many people that sit just complacent on the sideline, and they don't. We have a sitting member of Congress that won her federal race by 6 votes. I mean, if those 6 people wouldn't have got out the vote and wouldn't have taken it seriously, she wouldn't be there right now. She's a Republican, and even when they did the recount, she won by 6 votes. So every single vote is going to count. But our country is too valuable to me, and it should be valuable to everybody else. And I tell people, look, if you're not happy about it and you don't want to vote for yourself, fine. But at least for the sake of this nation, vote for the kids and the future generations that are going to depend on us to have done our job to give them the country to live in that we grew up in. And if we don't get out and vote, that's not going to happen. And I'm afraid of what our nation looks like if we don't bring some common sense and stop this overspending and get this federal government under control.
Well, you said Venezuela a second ago. That, I think, would be would be one way to look at it and say, look at what they did to themselves down there, and that could happen here. Campaigning is going on. Are you going to be in this area over the next few days or weeks or so?
Yeah, I've been. I was over in Hobbs yesterday, obviously, with Congressman Scalise. I spent yesterday afternoon, and we'll spend today over in Carlsbad. And then, obviously, we're going to be going up and down the I-25 up to the South Valley in Albuquerque, down to Las Cruces, and just all over the district. And I'll be back over in this way and spending. I don't have Artesia, so we do spend more time down in in Carlsbad now. And I'll be here all day and this evening for the Mayor's Energy Summit here in Carlsbad. So we're just making another big swing through the district and encouraging people to get out the vote, because it is going to be so critical. And it really will. I think a lot of these races, mine is being called a toss-up right now. It was a targeted seat going into this. Mm-hmm. And I just feel that my opponent does not represent our values. I mean, now he's trying to backwalk some of his statements, but he's got statements everywhere about, ending the oil and gas production, eradicating that industry, defund the police, defund the system. I mean, these are not the values of most of the people of New Mexico, and I think it's just critical that we protect our shared values and understand that freedom is on the ballot. And I don't want to wake up on the 9th and think, did we do enough? So we're laying it all out there. We're working our tails off, but we can only do so much. We have to have the voters get out and make sure that these House races in New Mexico are won, make sure that we have a new governor in Santa Fe, make sure we pick up some of these statewide seats. But we've got to hold this congressional seat and hopefully pick up at least 1 and maybe 2 more.
That would be very interesting. I'd like to be in the room on the other side if that happens, just to see the heads explode.
Yeah. It'd be great. But I just say, we've got to keep praying for our country and for these races. But there is so much, Gene, on the line right now going into this last 3 weeks, and it just couldn't be more serious. And you don't have to have somebody like me tell you we're in turmoil. You can tell by the price of everything. Fuel, food, this open border. I mean, none of this makes sense. These
it really
mandates
doesn't.
And putting more debt on the back of the people. We're feeling it every single day, and it's because this government is out of control. And the way we start reining it in is take the House and the Senate and stop this overspending and come back to a place where we can actually look at policies that work for the people of New Mexico, the people of America. But it is scary, and I want our future generations to not have to worry like they are over in Venezuela, not have to worry about, this economic crisis, because we're better than that, and we can rein this in America.
Congresswoman Yvette Herrell, thank you so much, and I'm sure a lot of folks will come up and be chatting with you at the Carlsbad Mayor's Oil and Gas Summit tomorrow. So appreciate the good fight, and good luck to you here in a few weeks.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Dean. Appreciate the time.
All right. We'll talk to you again real soon, hopefully before the election.
Oh, sure. You bet. Okay. Thanks,
right.
Dean. Have a blessed day.
You too. Thank you very much. All right. We're going to